Guys, it's Mark
And Lindsay.
from my Red Gate Homestead, and today we're going to talk a little bit about kind of how we got started homesteading. Um, like my wife has said in the previous video, we both kind of have a background in ag. Me more so on cattle and hay, and her more so from like pigs and row crop. But she went off to college and I got in the union, and neither one of us kind of stuck around our family's operations, and it's hard today to try and get started farming or anything on a large scale. And so we decided that we would buy a little piece of property and try and raise some of our own animals and stuff and get started. We wanted our kids to have kind of the upbringing we had, but both of us went, kind of different ways off that farm. So, for instance, my wife's passion is pigs, so we got pigs. And what did we get? We did feeder pigs first.
Like 5 or 6 feeder pigs, I think.
In the beginning, and we started raising feeder pigs. We knew we wanted to start selling feeder pigs, and the main thing about it is when you get started, you don't want it to be a job. You already got a full-time job, and most people can't afford to quit their jobs and homestead and do that for a living. Right off the bat, you kind of got to work up to that, some sort of market in order to get into doing that. So we started selling pork. That's what my wife enjoyed. So it's like, we'll give this a shot. So we got into it. Well, most people just raise pasture pork, and we thought, well, how can we do this and make it unique to us? How can we make this where people want to buy our pork? And we got started with the mule foots.
Mm-hmm. Which, if you don't know, it basically, they're a really dark-skinned pig with a solid hoof instead of the split hoof like most pigs you've probably seen. It just has a one solid hoof, which helps
them when they're to be outdoors, right, instead of your split hooves, which
we live on a lot of rocks.
Yeah,
so that made it very beneficial.
Yeah. They do really good foraging. They do really good in winters. That's something that I'd say about them. They did really good in the winters.
Mm-hmm.
Really, there's no maintenance to these pigs, but their meat is like really high quality. They got a lot of omega-3s in them. It's they marble out. We've had people say, "Man, that looks like a beefsteak," and so we got started raising these mule foots, and honestly, they were friendly. They were great moms. They really didn't have the biggest litter size, which was fine for us, because like I said, when I'm getting ahead of the story, we bought the feeder pigs. We raised them out, and we were like, and I don't really care for pigs. We'll just go ahead and say that, get that out there. I don't really care for pigs. I like eating them, but I don't, I've never really been one of those guys that was just crazy about raising pigs. And, which is kind of crazy because I married into a pig family. They're big pork producers, and yeah, it's kind of ironic. But anyways, and let me get this, say this out loud. America needs the pork producers. We really do. We need to back the pork producers. We need to back, your big cattle farmers and stuff. I get people are trying to raise their own stuff, and you're trying to maybe do it in a way that you think is healthier, but there's people out there that can't afford that. They can't afford to do that, and we really need to step back and thank our farmers. I really believe that. It's been a tough year, especially with everything going on right now in the world. It's been tough on them. So I really do thank
all of them, not just your meat producers, your dairy guys, your corn guys, your soybean guys, all of them.
Yep, absolutely. That's something we all need to be thankful for. But so anyways, we like I said, we got started raising the mule foot feeder pigs, and it didn't take very long, and we had the 5 or 6. I think it was 6. I think it was 6. Didn't take long to get those sold, and then we had people coming back wanting more, and we're like, oh boy, you know. And and there's another thing. You've got to think right then and there. Do you want to be a feeder operation and just do feeder pigs, which is fine. That's great. That works out really well in a lot of cases, because now if you start talking about the farrowing operation, now you got to have, you know, farrowing hut, heat lamps. You got to have a bore unless you're going to AI. Well, our experience with AI, my wife, really good at it. I mean, really good at it. She could go out there and AI pigs, you know. I mean, that's what she grew up doing. But you're going to have to dedicate a lot of time to make sure that you're watching those pigs. Well, if you've got a full-time job still, you really can't dedicate your time to that. So then you got a boar cost. You know, you got all this. Well, we got big enough where we were selling a lot of feeder pigs that my wife and I sat down and we talked, and so we got a breeding pair. Well, I say breeding pair. We got what? I think 2 sows and a boar.
Mm-hmm.
2 sows and a boar. And then we started. So then we'd have 2 litters a year, and again, those mule foots, no maintenance. I mean, there was just no maintenance in them. You give them their feed, their water, shade, a hut. I mean, they go out, they make nests, and they pig. And that was great. Like, I mean, because we both still had full-time jobs, you know. I mean, we both still worked up in the city and just didn't have the time to take care of them. Well, so then we were selling out of those. Because we had people wanting to come and buy feeder pigs from us, you know, and that's just it. Now you got to think about, well, now I got all these pigs. So I sold 6. Well, now I need, we'll just say 10 or 15, but you've got 20, you know. So now you got to be able to say, hey, I'm going to sell some of these, you know, how do I get rid of these others so that I'm not eating all my profit? Because if you want to be a homesteader and that's your end result is to be able to do that full time, you've got to really watch your pennies. You've got to make sure that every dollar counts. So we would sell feeder pigs of our own, you know, and we kind of got we got known from a guy up by Iowa for it. And so then we got into the issue of the mule foots are a great hog, and that is phenomenal pork. But they take a little while to grow out. Again, when you're starting out and you're really trying to watch what you're spending, you can't really, you know, you don't really have time to wait on that, you know, necessarily. So then we introduced.
Plus, we wanted a little bit bigger of a litter size. If we're gonna feed 3 sows and get 12 pigs, we knew we could feed 2 sows and still get the 12 pigs.
Right, yeah.
So we're trying to cut costs in that aspect too,
Yeah.
if possible. But yet, I mean, all along still trying to keep the same quality of meat.
You know, instead of having 3 sows for 12, you know, pigs per litter or whatever, you know, we can maybe get 2 sows and do the same thing. So we introduced a Berkshire boar. Mm-hmm. And we loved the Berkshire boar. I mean, loved that. That guy was a big old teddy bear. Again, we bought him local from a guy that does kind of what we do. And, you know, so we bought the Berkshire boar, put him on our sows, and, man, our litter sizes went up, and they were growing really well. But we lost some of that kind of marbling in there, you know, a little bit. So then we got into the Mangalisa, which Mangalisa, again, this is stuff that's like not common to Kansas. You know, this mule foot is not common to Kansas. Mangalisa.
What is like AKA the hairy pig.
Yeah, it's like people think, you know, oh, they look like a sheep. When we got the Mangalisa and we brought them, people laughed at us. I mean, they thought we were crazy. Like, what kind of, there was a guy that raises show pigs, and he looked at our pigs, and he's like, that is not a pig. And we're like, yeah, it is. And they are fantastic. They taste, I mean, delicious. They got a rich flavor to them. I mean, it's smooth. There's no greasy taste in the mouth. I mean, they really are a delicate, hog, I think. I mean, they are, it's, that's something you'd find in a, high-end restaurant. But they've got a temper.
Yeah.
Oh, she takes care of all of our pigs, and those Mangalisas, when they pig, they come after you, which wasn't good for our kids. We noticed though when you breed them to the Mulefoot and the Berkshire, and you get them kind of crossed down, they weren't so bad. Right. They were pretty good. And mind you, all three of these breeds really took care of their babies. I mean,
yeah. We didn't really assist anybody having babies.
We'd have we got up to having 12 in a litter,
yeah.
and not losing any. I mean, that's how good of moms these were, which really helps when you're trying to, make your homestead. So, but at this point now we got so big that, just selling local, we weren't having enough local business to support the hog business. So my wife and I decided we'd sell at the farmer's market. Well, then we decided we'd get into sheep because, now we got to have something else to offer at the farmer's market. My wife grew up raising sheep, showing sheep, and
we've always had chickens, so we've always had eggs. So that was.
And my son, Trace is 6, and he's been in some of the videos, and you'll see him buzzing around all the time. That boy loves the farm. He loves to work. He really is. He's a hard worker. You don't even have to tell him to do stuff. Chickens is kind of his thing. I mean, the birds are Trace's. Sure. Yeah, the ducks for sure. But the chickens are. So we have been very fortunate on that. We have all these chickens, and like she said, so we had all these chickens, and we get started in the farmer's market, and. We started selling eggs, and it's like everything just started falling in place. My wife was able to quit her full-time job up in the city, and she still works. Excuse me. She still works from home. She does a few things from home, but she was able to take this and really run with this homestead. We were selling at the farmer's market. We're selling the lamb, and so we'll talk a little bit about the sheep, I guess. The sheep we got into, were a hair sheep.
Katahdins.
Yeah, Katahdins. And I fell in love with that because they are so much like a cow, it's ridiculous. As far as parasites don't really bother them. They eat grass and weeds. I mean, they
for a sheep, I was surprised how much of the weed aspect they did eat. That was almost like a goat. And they clean up, the branches they could reach on the trees, clean those down, vines, that sort. They would pretty well take care of a pasture.
But they weren't really, I would say, dumb in the sense of like a wool sheep. I mean, they were like cows. They grazed and just acted like a cow.
Which a big thing too is we didn't want to have to worry about finding somebody. I mean, because we kind of checked around and there's not really anybody shearing sheep for wool anymore, and wool's not worth anything.
No.
So that was kind of another big push to go to the hair sheep because they actually just shed out themselves. So we didn't have to worry about keeping them sheared and maintained in that aspect.
Well, and they're pretty hardy. I mean, that was another thing. They were really hardy things. Our problem with the sheep for us was predators. We couldn't get a good dog. We'll just put it that way. We bought a dog, an adult dog, with our first herd of sheep. We couldn't get her to stay home. I mean, could not get her to stay home. We lost lambs, couldn't get her to stay home. So we said, well, let's buy a puppy. We'll get a puppy and raise a puppy with these sheep. The sheep, get a puppy out there. They really kind of just beat up on her. Well, then she just wants to get out of there. So then we bought like a teenage dog, and that was a nightmare from the beginning. Um, we never really tried the donkeys or the alpacas or llamas. I never really tried that. So maybe one of those would have worked for us a little bit better than the dogs did. The dogs just they didn't work for us at all. So we wound up getting out of the sheep. But while we had them, like I said, we sold the eggs, pork, and lamb at the farmer's market.
We did some meat birds.
And we did some meat chickens. And the farmer's market was great. Well, I'm in the union. I run cranes for a living, and my work schedule, is all over the place. It's up, it's down, it's all over. And I was working a lot of weekends. We were trying to get a bridge done, and I was working a lot of weekends. So I was no help for her at the farmer's market. I was really no help here at the farm. So we decided for our family that we would not do the farmer's market. We'd take a year off. Well, and mind you, we're still loving the farm. Like, we still love it because we're doing stuff. People ask me at work all the time, why do you do that? Why do you go home and farm? People don't understand this, and they think I'm crazy when I tell them this. It really is my sanctuary. So, our plan is to eventually be able to do this full time for both of us. But, right now it's, I have the insurance deal at work and all that stuff. And so, I'm still working doing that up there. And I enjoy what I do. Don't take that way. I just nowhere near what I do this down here. And you, I mean, this isn't a job really. We look forward to going out there together. I would think most days. I mean, I'm sure I get on her nerves some days. But yeah, we enjoy this. And the cattle aspect, we've always had a few cows. I mean, since we've been together, we've had cows. You don't really hear us talk much about that in the farmer's market because we never really, there was already a guy selling beef, so we never really sold beef up there.
We usually just had one or two that we raised for ourselves. And
yeah. Well, because, again, like we talked about in the beginning of the video, we never really had the big, we never had the land to really grow a lot of cows. And now we're renting some property and we're getting started in that. We've built up, a decent sized cow herd and our plan is to, buy some more ground and do that. And, but you do it as you can afford it and get that niche. That's the thing. Like we've said, this whole video is about getting started homesteading. We got to find that niche. Ours, what really got us off and going was the pigs. And I never would have thought I'd be saying that. But it was the pigs, and it was
Mulefoot,
yep.
Mangalisa.
Yep. It was finding that specific breed that's not common. Find something that you enjoy, but find the breed within that. Or, if you're raising, a garden, maybe don't do just the regular tomatoes. Maybe do that heirloom, tomatoes. Do something that is going to be specific to your homestead, that somebody can say, hey, these are the only guys in Kansas, which I'm sure we weren't the only guys in Kansas. You find that specific niche. Mm-hmm. And that's, the key to growing your homestead, I think.
We have the miniature cows, which you've seen several times. So that's kind of our little, niche there with the cattle world. Of course, a lot of people show up and they laugh at those too, but
yeah, that's
the story of our life.
Oh, I never thought I'd own one of those either. But we got this miniature Angus, and I thought, oh man, what did we just do? Like, it was fun at the time. Everybody at the auction's like, oh, congratulations, you got the cow, and everybody's all excited for us. And I'm like, yeah, and it kind of sunk in. I'm like, I didn't even bring a trailer. I had to come all the way home, get a trailer, go all the way back up there. So I had time to sit there and think about, what did we do? Like, now we got to buy a miniature bull because you can't breed her to, your standard bull. I can't sell her because my kids have already now just fell in love with this cow. So we started looking around. Well, in the process of looking around, instead of finding a bull, I found another cow and a miniature Hereford cow. So I'm like, oh, I think I'll buy her. My wife's like, are you crazy? Because we've already got one we don't know what we're going to do with. I'm like, yeah, but what better than to have one than to have two we don't know what we're going to do with. So we bought the Hereford cow. And then we wound up buying our miniature Hereford bull that you guys seen. And our kids, they're pets. Our miniature cows, that's something I'll tell you. If you guys want to raise your own beef and you're not on a very big homestead, you know, not very much land or very many acres on your homestead, the miniature cows really are a good way to go. I mean, you're going to average out with a steer that, you know, when you go to fatten it out, you're going to get about 800 pounds. You know, about 800-pound steer is about what they're going to max out at. So it's, you know, quite a bit smaller. But for a single family, with a deep freeze, it's pretty good meat. The input to them is nothing. I mean, they don't eat nowhere near what your traditional cow will eat. They're friendly. They're docile as all get out. Like, they will eat out of the palm of your hand.
I showed that video of the kids petting our bull. I mean,
yeah,
he's just as friendly as the cows are.
And you know, when we watch it, you know, because we would never let our kids do anything that's dangerous. We'll say that.
And if there's a thought of something being dangerous,
It's
then
gone.
getting out of control,
we eliminate. But you know, you just have to be willing to know there's a niche. Find that. Every place has them. I mean, that's just it. Maybe where you're at, you know, Mangalisa's common, and so's the mulefoot and all this, you know. But maybe miniature cows ain't, and that could be your little niche. You know, people laughed at us because we're in Kansas, and we have hairy pigs, miniature cows, a pony. I mean, all this stuff that I never would have dreamed about having on my farm growing up. Hair sheep.
Not wool.
I mean, it's like, you talk about the Dr. Seuss farm over here.
Funny farms.
Yeah, the funny farm. I mean, here we are. But it's worked for us, you know. It really has. We've had so much fun doing this. And anyways, this is where we're going to end the video. I hope it's helped you guys out a lot. You know, comment. We'd love to talk to you guys. We're both new at this YouTube thing. We're just trying to get it out there. You know, bear with us. We're trying to get better at it. We're buying new equipment, trying to figure it all out. We have a lot of projects going on this year. We really do. We've got, we're going to be building a cabin, an off-grid cabin in the back. Kind of somewhere to take our kids and just get away for the night, even though you're on your place, so you can still take care of your animals. We're going to be building a deer blind for the family, putting in a food plot. We're going to be possibly working on a pond this year. I don't know if with all the other projects, if we'll get that done before winter or not, or even started. But we are going to start building a pond. We got some fence to build on our own property to finish it. And then just your everyday stuff. And our biggest reason for this channel is we want to let you guys know it's not as scary or as hard as a lot of people make this stuff out to be, this farm. And it's not as difficult on, you know, figuring out, well, should I do this or should I not do it? I mean, just do it. Jump in, you know, give it a whirl. Don't worry about, well, is it going to sink or fail? If you're passionate about it, if you're really passionate about it, it'll work. I mean, you've got to start out believing it's going to work and be passionate, and it will.
Yep.
I mean,
jump in like we did with the mini cows, and then ask questions later.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's go, I guess.
So, well, thanks for watching this video, and hit that thumbs up, please. It really does help, especially our channel being so new, and it help us, and hit that subscribe.